show me why I should agree with you. In the same way that you would prove to somebody else that they should agree with you that you should eat at Olive Garden, or that they should vote for the Democratic as opposed to the Republican Party, or why they should be a Yankees fan as opposed to a Mets fan, or why they shouldn't get really mad and punch somebody. All of these are the same idea. You're just giving someone why they shouldn't do something. And this is your most important word for this paper. The entirety of the paper is just answering this question, why? You tell me what you think, and then you tell me why. That's the general gist. And not just why you think it, but why I should think it too.
And also how, in some way. Because like in a rebuttal paragraph, or like in the body paragraph, you must explain like how you should approach to the solution of why you are doing this.
The way to think of it is, step one, you tell me at the start what you think and what you think I should think. So, step one is what? What do you think and slash what should I think? Step two is tell me why I should think that. And step three is proving to me or showing me how you've concluded that I should think what I should think for the reasons that I should think it. Which is a very sloppy way of, we can now put in a little more context. Basically, let's talk about the reason, defense, or argument for some claim. So, let's start off with reason. What do we mean by reasons? What is a reason? And this is something which, like, what are we talking about with reasons?
Pieces. Like, you are basically saying, like, stating your claim of why. So let's say, like, we should invade North Korea because, one, we need to know how Kim Jong-un is like in real life.
Yeah.
And I'm just making up an example.
Yeah, so this is the key. Reasons are things that answer the question, why? And you answer them why with the word because. So, for instance, here's a question. I've decided I don't ever want to eat again. I'm never going to eat food again. Is this a good idea? Is this a good idea?
It's a good idea, and it's a bad idea at the same time.
So say my goal is to live a long and happy life. My goal is to live to the year.
It's not a good idea.
All right. So my goal is to live until 80, and my plan is to never eat again. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? Bad. Why? I would die. Okay, I would die before I get to 80. Why? What is it? What is the reason that I would die before I turn 80 if I stopped eating? No fuel. Yeah. So here's the idea: the human body cannot live without fuel. That is a reason that it's a bad idea. In the same way, I want to go to LA and I want to get there by tomorrow. My plan is to walk. Is this a good idea or a bad idea?
Absolutely a bad idea.
Bad idea.
Absolutely.
Why? Because
no, it's not that.
I might die, and also more importantly, no human being can walk fast enough to get to LA by tomorrow.
And also, like, your leg muscles will severely tire out.
Yeah. So everything, just to be clear, what you're all giving me to these ridiculous questions, those are reasons. Those are reasons. You explain to me why I should or shouldn't do something. Here's not a good reason. Because I said so. So, why shouldn't you go to LA? Why shouldn't you try to walk to LA? Because. Or, I don't like LA. Or, my dog just died. My dog did not die. But here's the idea is that when you're giving a reason, you're not just saying, like, some facts or some true things. You're rather explaining to this person why a certain thing should be done or why they should think it. So when you're thinking about reasons, what you're thinking of is giving an explanation for something and not just like a declaration or something like that. It's not, so you can think about the difference of a reason versus a non-reason is you can imagine, let me think of a good case. here's two different reasons of a very different sort to go to Grand Central today. One reason is you want to get on Metro North. That is a reason that it gives you a reason to go to Grand Central. The reason being that it will help you reach your goals. And you could explain to someone, like if you had somebody come along and go, I have to get to Poughkeepsie today. You could go up to them and go, okay, the best way to get to Poughkeepsie for a reasonable price and in a reasonable amount of time is you go on the Metro North. How do you get to the Metro North? You take the subway and then you go to Grand Central. Here's a entirely different sort of reason to go to, or here's another reason that might lead you to end up in Grand Central. Someone knocks you on the head and drags you there. That is a very different sort of thing. That's not a reasoned argument. That's just physically whacking you on the head and dragging you there. We are thinking more of the providing reasons and explaining to someone why they should do a certain thing. Think of the paper, you are explaining to someone why they should do something. In this case, why they should agree with the position that you are suggesting. Okay, there were some hands along here. Glenn, did you have a hand? Okay, you did.
Pro tip, don't use the cookie cutter sentences, like any cookie cutter sentence.
What do we mean by a cookie cutter sentence?
Like saying oh, hi, my name is Udito and today I'll be explaining why it is important to save your streak on your eyewash station.
Okay, so first thing, I've never used the phrase cookie cutter sentence, but I'm not 100% certain what it means. So therefore, I'm just going to avoid and say that you don't want sentences that come out of nowhere or you've just taken from somewhere else. But here's another thing about this sort of, give me a second, I need to recollect my thoughts because
Sure.
I'm trying to figure out what we mean by cookie cutter and my mind just got distracted. All right, basically, the way to think about this is when you're giving these reasons defenses, the rest of the paper is just reasons to believe this. And specifically, though, you want to organize these reasons in a way that anybody can follow along with.
So what's the problem with the cookie cutter stuff?
I don't know. We're avoiding the cookie cutters because I'm just confused.
Okay.
I just ate an oatmeal cookie.
Sentences that everyone would
good.
use. Like, you know how sometimes in papers,
Like in conclusion, like
Yeah.
they conclude this.
Oh,
Like
oh.
stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like
Oh, pause.
Teach you that in 15.
Here's a fun fact about papers. I don't care about cookie cutter sentences.
Yeah.
Let's just go with that.
let's go. Let's do that.
This is my approach to paper writing. How many paragraphs should your paper be? There's a correct answer. As many as it needs to be. How long should a paragraph be? How many sentences should be in a paragraph? As many as you need to be there. How many words should be in a sentence?
As many as
you need.
More than one.
I love it.
No, I don't care. If you want to put, this
got
can be
you.
a sentence in
I'm
your
just
paper.
gonna write a
No,
sentence
like,
in this
here's the
subject.
thing. It's about substance, not substance. I don't care if every
In a
single word in your
nutshell.
paper is misspelled. I don't care if you have zero capital letters. I don't care if your period's broken. If I can understand what you're trying to say, that's what I care about. And you can do all of that. So this is the best way to think about sentence structure, paragraphs, anything like that. Those are tools. Those are tools to help you make your ideas clear to yourself and to your reader. Periods are there to be helpful. They are not there for me to take points off of. That's dumb. If you write the most beautiful thing ever, but you never use the space key, I don't care as long as I can follow. Now, what I will say is it is much harder to be clear if you never use a space key. There's a reason we put spaces between our words and why we use certain spellings, because it's very hard to follow along with. But if you can get away with it, I'm not going to take off points. Also, this word is your friend. You're allowed to use it.
Of
Yes,
course.
You're allowed to say, I believe, I think,
Yay.
I'm about to. You are allowed to be a part of your paper. That is allowed. Because if you think about this in terms of reasoned arguments, when you're explaining to somebody else in your everyday life, you're allowed to use I. Also, here's another general thing about writing this paper. Let me think of a good one.
Explicate. Oh, I love it.
One of these is the word explicate. The other is show. Which of these is better?
Show.
Ex- Suffocate.
Show's better, it's shorter and a lot easier to follow along with. If you're using a whole lot of unnecessarily big words, you're just confusing yourself and your reader. You want short, easy sentences. Generally, if you finish your paper, you read it, and you're like, damn, this looks like it was written for a first grader. You're doing great.
But does a first grader understand it? There you go.
That's the key. If you can, this is the best way of judging whether your paper is good. If you gave this to somebody who is lazy, stupid, and mean,
But they'd understand.
would they understand that I have a point? If even the lazy, stupidest, meanest fourth grader could understand your paper, it's a good paper. That's your audience. You are trying to say something that is so clear that if I was, if I got I've also used this analogy. Imagine that walking to my house, I walk into a tree and I get a concussion. If I can still understand your paper if I'm concussed, it's a good paper. In the same way, this is the real goal of this, is to learn how to say things so clearly and easily that anybody can understand it. Because if you can get anybody to understand it, you are good at explaining things. And if you can show, it's another thing, you don't understand something fully unless you can explain it to somebody else. There are many things I'm sure you think you understand that you do not understand. And the way you would know that you don't understand this is somebody can say, what do you mean by that? Or what are you talking about? I mean, I know I've had that experience. There are many things I thought I understood. I don't know, cricket. Has anyone ever tried to understand the game of cricket? Like the Indian version of baseball?
No.
Yeah, if you don't grow up with it, it is the most confusing thing ever.
Don't forget Australia and England. Too.
Yeah, I cannot,
The Ashes.
or things like, I don't know, chemical reaction, or this stupid thing with cells in biology class where you've got a bunch over here. I don't understand osmosis. I thought I did, but I don't understand osmosis. Yeah, this is what we're talking about. Your goal is to prove to me that you can understand these topics well enough that you could explain to a fourth grader, or at the very least, a precocious, unnecessarily big word, smart, eighth grader, what on earth you're talking about. So, this is basically how you will be tested. Could a relatively informed and only mildly intoxicated eighth grader understand what you're talking about? And so think of it in this way. What do you need to do to make sure that anybody can follow along? And that's how you should think about this. Every suggestion, everything I give you is towards that goal of how do I make what I'm trying to say as clear and easy to follow as possible. In the same way as if you were talking to another person and trying to convince them of something, what would you need to do to convince them? So just brainstorming here as a team, what sorts of things are we looking for? We've already said small words is good.
Mm-hmm. Like good use of transition words?
It's transitions. Or I use this word signposts. This is the most common word I write on your papers. This is my version of cookie cutter, i.e. something which I write a lot and no one's quite sure what it means. So what do I mean by a signpost? Well, what is a signpost in your everyday life? What does a signpost tell you? What is written on a signpost? Direction, words, very often the street, or it's a picture. It is
and miles.
Or miles. It just tells you what. If you come across this, what is that telling you?
You have reached
Where you are. That is what a signpost is in a paper. Its sole purpose is to tell the reader where along the way they are. So, in the same way where if I'm trying to convince somebody of something, and here's the other thing to keep in mind, I am a human being. I have a brain, which is very good at some things and very bad at others. Just so happens the things I'm generally good at are similar enough to yours. Like if you tell me something 45 minutes before and then refer back to it, I might have forgotten it, because that's the way the human mind works. So think about signposts as ways of being like, hey stupid, I know you may have forgotten what we were talking about, so let me remind you where we are. I'm realizing that this is not the most effective way of presenting this, so let me just put this up here. The best way of thinking about the way you present a paper is at the start, you tell the person, so this is number 3, for clarity's sake, you want to tell them where are we going,
Introduction.
which is done in the introduction. And what's that key TH word?
Thesis.
Thesis. The way to think of a thesis is it is doing two things. It's telling the reader, right, this is something I do care about, by the way. So I don't care about spelling, length, anything like that. I want to know your thesis before we reach the end of the first page. And that's not because I have like a hard and fast rule. It's just that when you're giving an argumentative reasoning, you're trying to convince someone of something, it is much easier to know, as the reader, how to follow along if you know where you're going. In the same way that if you're driving in a car, how many of you have ever driven in a car where you didn't know where you were going, and the person in the passenger seat was just like being like, all right, make a left here, make a right there, and you're just like, I have no idea, this is so hard to follow along with. Well, if they tell you, oh, we're going to grandma's, you're like, okay, now this makes a little more sense, I recognize. And the same idea, if you tell the reader at the beginning, like, oh, this is where we're going, pay attention, then they might be able to recognize why you're saying this particular thing or why you're saying that particular thing. So right at the start, paragraph 1, and this is what I want to see for next class, is this one paragraph. Start off with a intro
Spiel.
I don't know how to spell is there a correct spelling of spiel?
I think so. S-P-L.
I'm making up my own spelling. Spiel. Okay, so intro spiel. What do I mean by an intro spiel? Well, remember, one of the goals of this paper is to prove to me that you understand what you're talking about, that you know what on earth MTI is and why it matters and that sort of thing. So in your intro spiel, basically all you're doing is in your own words describing the prompt in a very short sort of way. So imagine that two of your friends are talking, and one of them is just like discussing, let's see. Yeah, I went to this concert last night, and it was awesome. And you walk up, and what's your question gonna be?
Okay.
Who concert? What concert? Same sort of thing. Imagine trying to jump in and be like, here's what you should think about this concert. It's like, well, okay, well, what concert? In the same way, what should I think about MTI? Well, you first have to tell me what MTI is. Or more importantly, you have to show me, the reader, that you know what on earth this is and why it's significant. So the intro spiel is literally just like imagine that one day, so it's just saying what I said to you in your own words to show to me that you understand what it is. So that's the intro spiel. 2 is what? Once you've told me this case, so up to here it'll be something like, they put in MTI, so-and-so sues them for violating his privacy. What's going to come next? If your overall goal is to convince me of some claim with a reasoned defense and you want it to be as easy as possible for me to follow along, what comes next? Yeah, thesis. And here's what your thesis should look like. Something along these lines.
MTI.
I believe that
MTI should/should not
should or should exist. That is all it needs to be. It can be, you can write slightly differently, like in this paper I will show why, or in this paper I will argue that, or something as blatant as MTI should, or contrary to so-and-so, MTI should be allowed to exist, or despite the money it's bringing in, MTI shouldn't exist. But it should be very clear right here on the first page what side you're arguing for. If by the end of the first page I don't know what your argument is, or where it's going, it will be much harder for me to follow along. So what you want to do right here at the start in number 2 is just tell me in very simple, short words what you'll be arguing for. And you can think about it as the difference between, like, if you're trying to talk to your mother about what restaurant you want to go to, you tell her at the start, we should go to Olive Garden. You don't give her like 77 reasons about the history of Italian cuisine and then at the end go, oh, an Olive Garden would be great tonight. No, she's gonna bet so like confused, she's like, why are you talking to me? No, tell someone why you're talking to them right off the bat. So that's the idea, is right here, talk about thesis. And then 3, which is semi-optional but very helpful, is what I call a road map. So, back in the day in which people used physical maps without just a lady in their ears talking to them, what does a map tell you?
Location of things.
Yeah, it just gives you an overall picture of what the entire thing looks like. It's basically, in just a handful of sentences, you tell your reader what's coming next. So you just tell them something like, you've now told them you're going to argue that MTI is immoral and shouldn't exist. So all you do here is something along the lines of, to show why MTI is immoral and shouldn't exist, I will first show that blah, 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 blah. Then I will blah, 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 blah.
And then I will.
Yeah,
yada,
so
yada,
literally,
yada.
it's just, if your reader knows where it's, like, how it's going to progress, it will be a bit easier to follow along with. So that's the third thing, is this roadmap. So, I'm starting to get that look in your eyes of, you've been rambling for like 40 minutes. So let me just say a couple other things here, and then we'll finish like 10, 15 to 20 minutes early. But the general idea here, and this is the part we need to worry about for the next class, is just the thinking about what your intro spiel is going to be, something very simple. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just like, don't misdescribe the case, use the names I gave you, show me that you are paying enough attention and have read and aren't like totally off base with what you're talking about. Like if you talk about how MTI is this new laser system which is going to shoot out of Donald Trump's eyes to kill everyone, it shows me that you haven't actually read the prompt. So just show me basic level that you know how to read this, understand it, and put it in your own words. Thesis shows me like, oh, you recognize that you have a goal you're working towards. And then roadmap is, the way to think of the roadmap is, what did we say a philosophy paper is? What's that R word which is so crucial?
Reason.
Reason. A roadmap is just telling me what your overall reasons will be. So if you're talking to, like, you'll say, first, I will, and then reason 1. Next, I will, reason 2. And again, how many reasons do you need in a paper? As many as you need. And this is where there's no black and white, and why it's hard for me to give you a straight answer. It's very, very difficult because you might just need one reason that you explain really, really well. You might need a whole bunch of smaller reasons. There are many different ways this can go. So what I'm doing probably this afternoon is I have a paper from a student from a couple semesters ago, which, while by no means a perfect paper, gives a pretty decent idea of how the structuring is. Now, depending on how I feel this weekend, I might also just whip up what I consider to be, like I will write a fake terrible paper, just so you have some idea of what a terrible paper looks like too. But I think you can get the general idea of what a terrible paper looks like. So even if I don't send you, but just an idea of what we're looking for. And then we'll also talk, next class, we'll like go over that paper together and highlight why certain things work. So that's what we'll be doing next time. But before that, the way to think about these reasons is just think about like, how do they convince you of this thesis? So, well,
in other words, they are supposed to be relevant and credible as justifications.
Yeah, exactly. They are supposed, so let's, just to finish, let's imagine, let's erase this. Imagine, let's imagine the Olive Garden case. Imagine we're writing a paper. This paper is called Why We Should Eat at Olive Garden Tonight. And this paper is being delivered to, I don't know, whoever you're going to dinner with tonight. So, what's your thesis in this paper? Imaginary paper. What's the thesis?
Why you should go to Olive.
Specifically though, not just a question. What is the thesis? A thesis is a statement.
I want to go.
We should go to Olive Garden. Here's our thesis. We should
I think we should go to Olive Garden
to Olive Garden.
because
Now, What are our reasons for this?
Breadsticks.
So,
Free breadsticks,
one,
yeah.
And unlimited breadsticks.
unlimited
Free
breadsticks.
Are they free?
Now, that's a general reason, but when you get to the paper itself, you can't just say one reason to go is unlimited breadsticks. You also have to explain to me why I, the reader, or in this case, the soon-to-be diner, should give a crap about the unlimited breadsticks. So, you can think about it as, in your roadmap, what you do is you say what your general reasons are. You just give them a title. Like, one reason we should go to Olive Garden is the unlimited breadsticks. Number 2, what's another reason? You did.
They have better menus, unlike Red Lobster, meaning like they have like so many chicken or like seafood varieties.
Options. They have many, many options.
Right.
And here's reason number 3.
I know, that's true. but
It's
I'm just
Post
saying, because
Malone's favorite restaurant.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Wait, is that true?
That is
It
true.
is true.
That is
Jimmy-
100%
Jimmy
true.
Fallon. Jimmy Fallon.
Olive Garden is Post Malone. Imagine these are our 3 reasons. So in your intro paragraph of the roadmap, you will literally say something, your paper would be something along the lines of, we should go to Olive Garden tonight. Mom, or friend,